Had to do a quick loop back there. Forgot my little cheat sheet here. Got some details on this Nike ACG Zegama Trail that I'm testing. A couple other things I'm testing. I've got the new Dera belt and obviously Radical AirFlow from Nike here. So I'm back here in Idaho up in the Sawtooth Wilderness. Again, got my little index card here. Just a couple of details on the ACG Zegama, but nothing as it pertains to this Radical AirFlow shirt here. Just picked this one up over at TrailCon, but even over the past year or so, I have really not looked into any details at all about the shirt. I am testing this with zero knowledge of specs and features and how exactly it's supposed to work. So obviously this is a shirt with holes in it, some small throughout and some larger, a couple different areas. I'm not sure, and I have not watched any reviews, anything like that. Is this supposed to perform equally when it's dry or wet or hot or humid? I don't know any of those types of details. It is quite hot. It's been in the 90s today, late afternoon now, so it has cooled off a little, but over here we have some afternoon thunderstorms that can frequently roll in, so a touch of humidity in the air. With all these things I'm testing out today, a lot to talk about between the shoes, the shirt, also the belt a little bit, so definitely going to split this one up into two parts. Today I'm going to hug a little bit closer to the river, enter by the normal trailhead, but I won't head up high to some of the higher lakes and a lot of the more climbing routes around here. I will run those higher routes tomorrow or sometime this weekend, but typically when I do head up there, definitely longer runs. I'd like to have my vest with me. Today I want to keep the Radical AirFlow flowing around me. So I've got my belt here, and I think also staying down low. It's also going to be hotter here for sure than heading up there. And I know from previous runs there's a few larger kind of water crossings here where definitely have optionality to get fully dunked. Wapiti fire came through here a couple of years ago. Vegetation on the lower grounds is filling in nicely. It was so bright with flowers on the ride in here. Definitely a big difference from last year, which is the first time we were over here since that fire. If you do want to catch up on some of my routes around here in this area, check out my adventure runs from last year in our character shoes, Norben LD4 and the Silent Pro. Also have a couple of other adventure runs in the Norda 001A. So does a shirt with holes in it improve airflow? Probably yes. Does a $150 shirt with holes in it improve airflow any better? Since I picked up this shirt at TrailCon, a couple of interesting developments. I noticed that Serena Williams was playing at Wimbledon in a Radical AirFlow, I guess, I don't know what we would call that, shirt all in one setup there. Tennis outfit, uniform. Also, Yannick Sinner just won Wimbledon. I don't believe he was playing in a shirt that had these Radical air holes in it, but he did raise the trophy in kind of a tracksuit warm-up type shirt that definitely had elements of Radical AirFlow. So you can take that information for what it's worth. I will say that I have been running in this shirt a couple times back home in Boise. Shorter, drier conditions. I was really saving it for a more extended run where I knew I'd be able to fully get wet. Not too many options for that back in Boise. I will say that I think unequivocally the airflow definitely is noticeable when you put this shirt on, even when you're standing in the house, take a few steps, and even when you're running. I can notice the air kind of passing through, certainly on the front of my body, all around the sides. At the end of my runs, each test run in the shirt, I've noticed that the front and arms, my front torso and arms are always completely dry. I do get a little moisture on the back, and I assume obviously the air is not flowing over my back. So I'm wearing a belt as I am today. Get some moisture kind of lingering around the low back area, which I think is to be expected. Typically when I wear any type of kind of synthetic running type t-shirt, especially if it's hot, I'll notice moisture all around my body. Shirt definitely gets wet, clings to my front torso, especially in areas where I'm wearing a vest or closer to areas where my belt is underneath. And that has just not been the case with this shirt. It's kind of interesting. I feel totally dry, and I assume, I'm pretty sure I'm sweating as much. And maybe that is just, maybe that is an aspect to pay attention to if you feel like you're dry, but probably sweating a little bit more could be a cue that, or masking those cues. You actually do need to hydrate more than you think if you're wearing this shirt. The ACG Zegama here comes in at 11.7 ounces, 332 grams in my US 10 EU 44. I'm gonna hold off for now on the Radical AirFlow wet test. Let's zone in on one thing at a time before I carry on with the specs. That is one of the primary concerns I had with this ACG Zegama. Just mentioned the weight, 11.7 ounces. It is on the heavy side, and I noticed the materials around this shoe seem to be quite plush. The tongue, inner heel padding, everything along the sides. You have a full interior lining attached from the gusset through the toe box. There's just a lot of what I would call comfort material around the upper of this ACG Zegama, and certainly creek crossings like that one, that is a major concern. Breathability as well, although I think it does breathe well. I think it's going to be more so an issue with all of that material holding water and also sweat from your feet. Specified stack is 38-34, 4 mil drop, up a little bit from the previous model. I had that one marked as 36-32. I of course measured the heel stack, and I did get 36 in this ACG Zegama here, so that puts it at 36-32 for me, in line with the previous stack. But I did not take a measurement, or I don't have it written down for that second version of the Zegama non-ACG. I don't recall actually the feel of that in comparison to this one in terms of stack height. I do recall that one had a big, huge heel flare, something I did not like here. We're going to talk about the shape of this shoe, fit and sizing. That is a primary update here, but that shoe definitely felt heel heavy, back heavy. Felt like I had that tail hanging off the back there. Not something that I typically like. I tend to favor more balanced feel, and ACG Zegama here, although heavy, certainly seems to have balanced out the weight from front to rear. Pretty wide up front, and that tends to even out the weight balance front to back. Pulling that thread a little bit further, ground platform, we got once you start getting into those mid to high stack shoes, which is kind of where this lands, pretty high, 36-32, but borderline mid stack, mid to high, let's call it. 86 is kind of wide, but nothing crazy. But the 123 under the forefoot, that's definitely one of the kind of wider numbers that I get up there. So not only did Nike intentionally widen out the fit of this shoe, certainly up front around the forefoot, they also proportionately, or I guess in line with the fit update, widened out the ground platform for stability. There's a couple of little angular extensions around the medial and lateral sides of the ball of the foot. It seems like they just stuck those out there a little bit for kind of contoury stability, since the shoe is quite flexible on the foot. There's a little bit of a forefoot plate in there, very small. I did get a comment, somebody asking me about feeling a little bit bulbous under the ball of the foot, and I think it is due to that small little rock insert there. I think it does give it a little bit of structural support. Otherwise, with the more ZoomX in this model that I'm going to talk about shortly, I think that does kind of rein things in, keep it from being overly soft. And I think with all that extra softer ZoomX foam, it would likely feel thin and probably get a few more rock hits if it didn't include that little element there. So it does push up a tiny bit into the ball of the foot, but I think it's the plate kind of pushing the foam up or holding it up a little bit more in that area. It's not any type of firmness that you feel the actual plate hitting your foot. I got to look at the components both at TRE and at TrailCon, and it is noticeable the amount of ZoomX foam in the mix here. Directly under the foot, you have that ZoomX foam layer, and it is much thicker than the carrier EVA foam layer, which kind of wraps along the bottom and underneath that ZoomX layer. You can see the delineations between the lower EVA foam and the upper ZoomX foam just from the outside of the shoe, but just know that the ZoomX layer is sitting deeper into that EVA layer. So actually a lot more of it in that EVA layer is just for durability. ZoomX is going to be softer for sure. You want to make sure, limit the amount of kind of rock hits that it could potentially take, and also to kind of stabilize it, similar to what they've got going on with that small rock plate in the front. So I have to say that my feet do feel wet here. It's been, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or so. Doesn't feel like it's gonna dry out quickly. Certainly not dry at this point. Certainly giving the impression that it's gonna be staying in there for a while, and my socks are likely gonna stay wet for the rest of this run, even if I don't have any other water crossings, which looks like I do right here. All right, is it Radical AirFlow time? Oh boy, I think so. That water's not warm. Camera's rolling. I'm committed. Woo! Woo! All right, yeah. It's definitely feeling cold here for sure, but yeah, quite refreshing. It feels heavy for sure. I mean, this is not, I guess, it had a dry fit label on it. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to be wringing out this material here. Is this recommended or not, or supposed to just keep it wet as long as possible? It feels like it's gonna stay wet for quite a while. Certainly lost my sun, so cloud cover, not gonna get any of that sun kind of evaporating it. It's just gonna be the heat and the airflow on it. So let's get on the run and see how this feels. I've gotten all kinds of comments about this shirt. Cheese gratering your nipples potentially. I was thinking about that, honestly, after running in a Fractal Adventure shirt over at Broken Arrow, which is a button-down shirt, but I forgot that I wasn't wearing a vest, and I don't normally race without a vest for that kind of long distance, and I was getting some irritation in that area. I thought about it for this one, but I've never noticed it. I haven't run too long. I think with it being wet now and being hot, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Maybe more so when it dries out. It definitely feels heavy around my body. That's for sure. I have to say, it is not blazing hot right now as it was earlier in the day. So maybe I'll have to give it another run when it is really blazing hot. It's kind of hard to feel the airflow actually at the moment because I think I noticed like the wetness of it more. It is extremely saturated and I feel like it's kind of flopping up and down around me. Not sure if that's detrimental yet or not. The shoes also definitely feel soaked. I don't know if you could hear that, but there's definitely a solid squishing sound coming from both of these shoes here. All that material I was kind of worried about. My shoes feel heavy, my shirt feels heavy. It's kind of turning into a bit of a weighted run here. I guess now's a good time to take a look at these uppers here, the fit and some of those elements I was talking about. They've done a good job of tightening up this ankle collar over here. I think they had something similar in the previous model, but it wasn't as tight. It's definitely tighter, but I question the material here. It's kind of thick. It's like a double layer because it folds over the top here. It's just, at this point, definitely holding a lot of water. Looking at this tongue here, you have a wide upper here. They really widen out this area here. It's a shoe now that I have to tighten down to get a good fit, whereas with regular Zegama version 1 and version 2, I actually had to like keep this intentionally like looser and then try to tighten down the upper ankle to get enough comfortability in the forefoot where I wasn't getting too squeezed. This one is completely swinging in the opposite direction. It's really wide over here, and I can really like tighten them down as much as I can kind of stand, and I don't get squeezed at all. So in terms of comfortability, if you have a wide foot, that is certainly good. But again, I'm here looking at these materials. Man, look at my socks. I'm certainly quite a bit heavier than when I started here, but the tongue is just quite wide. It wraps well down here, well over here, and it's just like, it's this thick, poofy material. It's just not like a performance material here. It's not a performance tongue here. It's more of like a general comfort material here. And certainly looking around inside here, there's a huge ring of padding in there, which is nice and soft, but yeah, like I'm squeezing it now and I can see the water kind of squishing out of that inside collar there. It's just like a lot of comfort padding from this ring. It's very thick. This is very thick. The tongue is just super thick. And then you have a gusset on the side which connects all the way to the back. And that gusset extends to a full interior lining. So you can see me moving it around in there. That's the lining inside of this perforated, got some fire stuff here. This perforated upper here, this is like the upper layer, and then inside you have a liner all throughout. And I find that those kind of setups typically do hold more water than typical. These are those like angular parts here on the medial side and the lateral side. Looking at it from above, you could see how wide this is, and that's where I took my measurement. I always kind of take it from like the widest point over here. So 123, I believe I said. That's kind of wide. This is kind of standardish, but I was talking about the balance earlier. I feel like 2 especially had like a big bulbous like round heel. It just felt heavy in the back. This one's better in that regard with this width up here, and I think probably less like hanging off the back there. It gives it a more balanced feel, although again 11.7 ounces in my size here is heavy, and now that I went through that stream, it's definitely, I don't know how, I wouldn't want to weigh this right now, including, you know, the shoe is keeping water and it's keeping it in my sock. So yeah, it's just like, that's the tongue right there, wringing it out. Not good on drainability, I'll say. I am like a sopping mess right now, I'll tell you that. Let's look at this Dera running belt while I'm here. I really like this belt. It's kind of in a similar style to the Raid belt, but a little bit different closure system, I think, which is its signature here. This is called a Fidlock dial here, and you can see it's not a boa, but it's effectively the same thing as a boa, except you can't dial it backwards, and to release it, you just kind of pull it off, and that totally opens it. But it is a magnet attachment, which is like, it finds its way right back on like super easily. So if you have to adjust it, it's like nothing to kind of redo it. And I find it's handy because I do have a size small here, and it fits me pretty well, although I can get it on a little bit easier than I would like. I think with a running belt, I typically want to, you know, sounds a little weird, but I want to work to get it on, because that means it's going to be tight around my waist, because I tend to wear my belts higher around my waist. If you saw my running belt roundup video, I can't wear my belts down on the hips like a lot of other runners do, because they just like ride up from my butt and they'll just like bunch up immediately. So I just start up higher on my waist, and having a cinch like this is pretty easy. As you know, with the Raid belt, they have two bands that go inside and then they kind of strap in the middle. This leaves this inside like a lot more open and accessible. This is like a huge front pocket here. There's a little waterproof pocket in here, which is for salt pills. It's good for trash, and this is something Dera's founder Morgan was telling me. I would not trust my salt. I just went in the water there, so I wouldn't trust this. You know, it's open on the top, but it's waterproof on the inside. I guess if you were in, or knew you were in dry terrain, it would be a non-issue, but certainly good for trash. I raced in the Raid LF2L at Broken Arrow. There's just no other little compartments around that thing, so I was running, I was eating my gels, and I had nowhere to put them. I just had to like stuff them in with the rest of my good gels. Just having a little small thing where I could like poke it in. The Raid belt does have them on the inside against the body, but it's kind of like a weird spot to get to. Coming to the rear of this belt, which is also nice, you have this kind of pass-through on here. So if you wanted to wear or use poles, you could pass them through here and then cinch them down with this one. What's also nice as far as having an external pocket is having the zipper here. This is where I got my, I was actually fishing for a gel right now. Oh no, that's my drink mix, that's my gel. It's nice to have this zipper pocket on the exterior, because you could keep something separate and then get to it pretty easily. You've got this, and then your main thing here, where you got your water bottle, they have a larger bottle they give you with this one. What is this, 575, a little bit larger than your typical 500 milliliter flask. One thing I was saying with the sizing, I have a small. I think I should be in an XS, because I'm getting some bunching on the interior of this material here. I do think even with an XS, it would certainly be tighter. It would certainly be better than this. But this is probably an aspect that they could probably improve on in the next revision. The layer that's like up against your back, I think this has to be a bit tighter. Because I think even if I had a small in this one here, in this belt, I think that, or I should say, even if I had an extra small in this, it'd probably be a little tighter, but I can't imagine it would be that much drastically tighter. And I think it does need to be like this. Seems like a little floppy to me. That needs to be tighter against the back. But I can get the bottle in and out. It's not an issue. They have a little side opening here, so this passes through to the bottle pocket. I have been using my blottle with this, which is a setup that I really like. So I run it the other way with the hose pointing this way, and then I pull the Ultraspire blottle hose out through here, and then I kind of tuck it under this middle part right here, and then I could drink on the run. I don't even have to take the bottle out the back, and then I just kind of tuck it around over here and tuck it against my waist. So I have like a hose routed straight around through here, which is something that I love in the Ultraspire Mountain Racer pack that, again, the Raid belt does not have. So love this little opening here if you needed to run a wire for also a headlamp or something. If you have one of those raw lights especially, you could have the battery pack somewhere back here, run the wire just over through here, and have your lighting situation up here too. my gel for the way home. And then I could pop this right into that little pocket there. And it's in a separate little compartment here, waterproof too. None of that stickiness is going to get on the rest of my stuff. And then I can have my gels and whatever else I need separated from that sticky packet in the rest of this belt here. Let's go. So I don't want this full excessive creek crossing wet test to be the be all end all for the ACG Zegama here. That's why I am going to take it out for another run tomorrow. I'll try to keep them dry for the start at least as much as possible. And this route or routes around here, some water crossings are definitely unavoidable, and if it's hot, I'll definitely want to get in them. I do love the fit of this shoe. The wider fit absolutely makes them a runnable option for me, whereas I didn't even feel like they were runnable the first two models for me. I was getting constant squeezing around the forefoot and just made them not fun to run in. Aside from the width, I just like being able to tighten down my shoes as much as I want to without getting pressure, lace bite, squeezing, any of that. And I can do that with a shoe. Perhaps it is coming at the cost of that thicker tongue there, kind of eliminating any of that lace bite or pressure anywhere around the foot when I do really tighten them up. But I have to say, I like it. Squeeze them down really tight, and for such a kind of big shoe, I don't feel like they're going anywhere. Almost made it there. I'm sure you already know you've got Vibram Mega Grip here, as with the last Zegama non-ACG version. No problems with grip and traction in this one. I talked about the contour underfoot. I'm gonna get into it a little bit more in tomorrow's run. Definitely have to traverse some wet rocks and take a closer look at some of those outsole lugs and flex and that sort of thing. Once I start going a little bit steeper up and down, this is more or less rolling on today's run. So this Radical AirFlow shirt is certainly still pretty wet. It doesn't feel like it's close to being dry, and that's quite some time. I'm not sure exactly how long, but didn't go into the creek that second time through after I turned around. Still feeling quite wet, really cool around the body. I'm actually feeling, I have to say, very comfortable. Again, it's not as blazing hot as it was earlier in the day, but still got that late afternoon warmth going on. I'm lower in this valley here, bit of humidity, and I have to say, it's still feeling a little heavy, not as sopping wet as it did, obviously coming straight out of that creek there, but I can definitely feel like I'm a little cold around my torso. Coming back to the taping the nipples aspect, I don't know, not irritating me right now, but I could notice the coldness in that area, let's say. Very chunky underfoot as well. Not as rocky all the time, but have some washouts from, I guess, slides from earlier storms. And kind of uneven for sure. Lumpy, I would say. Lumpy, I would call it, underfoot along this route. A lot of horses are coming this way too. And I feel pretty stable on this. I haven't noticed any kind of instability with the ACG Zegama here, especially for me as someone that leans midfoot, forefoot. That width right at the ball of the foot is kind of like the sweet spot for me in terms of just feeling stable, feeling like that's right around my landing spot and giving me good confidence even when it's so lumpy underfoot. I did also pick up one of those Radical AirFlow caps, but I'm kind of feeling like I wanted to try that one out separately. I have run in it here and there, but it's just so hot and exposed here in the summertime. I love my bucket hat. I feel like I need my bucket hat. Just the shading all around my face, the side of my face, It was full sun earlier in the day. I just like the sun protection of the bucket cap. Gonna have to test out that cap separately. So what is my final verdict on Radical AirFlow here? I think the answer is I actually don't have one. I'm not really sure. It feels good. It feels nice and cool. I noticed the airflow. Does that count as a verdict? I also noticed after I went through that creek, quite a bit heavy. But I'm not sure if there's a way to kind of tease out if it's helpful or not, or just wearing a regular shirt and getting wet. It certainly seems to be staying wetter longer than a regular shirt, and I'm feeling quite cool. I'm not sure if I'll wear it in tomorrow's run. If I wear a vest, maybe that could be also a good thing to test. How useful or helpful, or is it as helpful if you're wearing a vest on top of it? I don't know. Maybe I'll find out tomorrow. You'll definitely want to tune into that one. Of course, if you want some more details on the ACG Zegama here, I'm liking it so far, but putting it to the test over here in the Sawtooth, going up and down. So we'll see about a final verdict with the shoes as well over the course of tomorrow's run, or this weekend's run. Let's see how the weather shakes out. Too many boulders in that crossing there to attempt a flying leap. Thank you for tuning into this one again. To be continued. I'll be out here again in the ACG Zegamas and probably Radical AirFlow. Another test run with a vest tomorrow. More ups and downs. I'll see you out here next time from the Sawtooth Wilderness. Who doesn't appreciate a good ankle gaiter?